Hello, I'm going back to my book, Slavery in America. I heard someone say, a former member of the, I think it's the George W. Bush administration, say that the United States is now where we were in 1855. He said Trump moved us to 1850. Now with Biden, we're at 1855. And I wanted to go back and see what it was like back then. So I'm going to deal with First, I'm going to read a little bit about the Dred Scott decision, and then I'm going to read you some editorials, op-eds or editorials about that decision. So, the U.S. Supreme Court decision. The decision reached by the Supreme Court in the Dred Scott case in 1857 is one of the most notorious rulings in the court's history. Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, who wrote the majority opinion, declared that all blacks, slaves or free, were not and never could become citizens of the United States. The decision also made the 1820 Missouri Compromise unconstitutional and permitted slavery in all the country's territories. The case in which this appalling decision was made was an appeal by a slave, Dred Scott. Scott's owner had taken him into Illinois, a free state, and the territory of Wisconsin, also free, before moving him back to the slave state of Missouri. Scott argued that his residence in the free parts of the nation undid his status as a slave. Taney, speaking for the court majority, decided against him. Abolitionists were furious, and the decision further divided the sides in the expanding national debate over slavery. When those people stormed the Capitol, some of them were saying that the election was stolen because of the machines were hacked. Some of them were saying the election was a fraud because too many black people voted. They still don't see us as citizens. And we got to know this. This is why you got to know history. You must. Newspaper editorials responds from the Albany, New York Evening Journal and the Richmond, Virginia Inquirer. We had a lot of good papers. And now we have a lot of good blogs. So we're starting to develop that. I'm glad. The Supreme Court decision in the case of Dred Scott Sanford prompted passionate outpourings from the editorial writers of papers in both the South and the North. Journalists expressed the views of most of their readers in the strongest language they could command. Thus, on March 10, 1857, the Northern editorial writer for the Albany, New York Evening Journal called the decision monstrous, while the Southern journalists at the Inquirer in Richmond, Virginia held it for rejecting the diabolical doctrines of anti-slavery factionists and fanatics. You notice today both sides call each other fascists. 500,000 citizens disenfranchised. Albany, New York Evening Journal, March 10, 1857. Remember the former Bush said we're at 1855? Many things in the monstrous decision of the U.S. Supreme Court shocked the moral sense of the public. But the barbarism of the blow, which annihilates the citizenship of all the free colored people in the United States, has fallen with a stunning force on all who have been taught that justice is obligatory on man and that Christianity is the social law of humanity. The 500,000 of men and women paralyzed by the atheistic logic of the decision of the case of Dred Scott, which disenfranchises them on the soil on which they were born, will be to all free and uncorrupted souls a complete denial of the bad law and worse conscience with which the Supreme Court has pronounced its departure from republicanism and its entrance into slavery. Now, at one point in this country, black slaves outnumbered their masters. So black people were a majority in the system, in the society at one point. So The fact that we're a minority now, our numbers are always lower. There was a lot of killing because there were a lot of slave rebellions. So that's another thing you got to keep in mind. The Dred Scott case, Richmond, Virginia Inquirer. Can I get this one in? Yeah, let's read this one. March 10th, 1857. In anticipation of the definitive decision of the Supreme Court of the United States in the Dred Scott case some months or more ago, its adjudication was announced through a respectable proportion of the press, emanating we do not now recollect precisely whence or how, but as the sequel shows, not from mere conjecture or without reliable data. For it was then stated that 7 of the 9 judges constituting the court agreed on the opinion that the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional, and consequently that the rights originating in it and under it were even factitious and ineffective. And it will be seen by the authentic enunciation of the grave and deliberate decision of the august body in another column that was rumor then and is reality now. Thus has a political legal question involving others of deep import been decided emphatically in favor of the advocates and supporters of the Constitution and the Union, the equality of the states and the rights of the South, states' rights, in a contradistinction to and in repudiation of the diabolical doctrines inculcated by the fascists and fanatics, and that too by a tribunal of jurists as learned, impartial, and unprejudiced as perhaps the world has ever seen, a prize for which the athletes of the nation have often wrestled in the halls of Congress, has been awarded at last by the proper umpire to those who have justly won it. The nation has achieved a triumph. Sectionalism has been rebuked, and abolitionism has been staggered and stunned. Another supporting pillar has been added to our Constitution. The assailants of the South and enemies of the Union have been driven from their point-au-point. A patriotic principle has been pronounced. A great national conservative union-saving sentiment has been proclaimed. You notice the South used a lot of flowery language. They still kind of do that. A lot of dog whistles they use, they think it's dog whistles, but I guess that's their tradition. Confederates today. An adjudication of the constitutionality of the Missouri Compromise in the Dred Scott case inseparably embraced collateral questions of such character as also to involve incidental issues not unfrequently arising in the councils of the country, and which have ever proved points of irreconcilable antagonism between the friends and enemies of the institutions of the South, all of which, it will be seen, have been unequivocally established in accordance with the sense of the Southern people. This is why they're mad at Trump. Trump doesn't speak like this. He just comes out, yeah, you're a slave. You're murderers. You're rapists. But this is what they believe, as if we didn't know that this is what they were saying. They're saying the same thing. And thus it is the reason and right, justice and truth always triumph over passion and prejudice, ignorance and envy, when submitted to the deliberations of honest and able men, that the dross and the genuine metal are separated when the ore is accurately assayed. And that's just conservative and right-wing websites have replaced those old papers, and you have radical left websites who replaced old papers. So Not much has changed. I don't know what. I mean, Civil War might not look like it looked back then, but there are a lot of people dying. There are a lot of people being arrested and rounded up, and we'll see where this goes. But just be prepared. Be prepared. And I'm glad that I'm here to help you prepare and provide this material. And I thank you for your support if you are supporting. And I ask that you take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.